Well, there aren't too many stories. I do know that all I can say is that he was the most
Patient.
patient, and there's another word I could use. Never really saw him upset about anything, and if my mother was upset, he'd say, "Take it easy, everything will be okay." He was.
That's where you get it from, Ron.
And would your mother get upset?
Oh, yes, my mother. She had. She
That's
had,
where I get it from.
She had two sisters, and my mother's dad owned a home, and the one sister took care of the dad with her family,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandpa that owned the home, he would buy everything for them, and he'd pay all the bills. He was on the railroad, so he had money. He didn't go do much of anything, but he'd have his little purse, and he'd just be handing out money all the time.
And who is this?
My mother's dad.
Bushy's dad.
Bushy's dad
Yeah.
Okay.
lived on off of Lincoln, 16th off of Lincoln. What was it, Grant? And that was her sister, which name was Jenny. You never met her because she died
No,
early.
yeah.
Was another sister Aunt Jo?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Joe lived like it was a flat. She lived in the
House,
lower
yeah.
level, like a basement made up flat.
Mhm.
And Aunt Jenny lived upstairs
With her family.
with her family and Jaja.
And of course, my mother always felt that she never got a fair share because they were getting everything from the dad, and my mother was married to Stanley and had the store. And then, of course, my mother, when they had a little hard time, at times everybody had hard times, my mother would send bags of grocery to both of them.
Okay.
And when they'd have money, they would never reciprocate
Wow.
it anyway. So my mother used to get so upset. And then my dad said, take it easy, things will be okay. He was so adorable, I'm telling you.
So you guys lived at the store?
Oh yeah,
How?
It was a store in front of our living quarters.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a nice building too. It was like you say, a 2-story, nice big attic with only one spare bedroom, and then the store was in front, and our living quarters were in back, and it was normal. It was a nice kitchen, living room, dining room, 2 bedrooms and a bath, and then they had the basement, and that was for their inventory for the store.
Okay.
And
What would they all sell?
it was a grocery store
Oh.
and a meat market. My dad was a butcher,
Okay.
so
So how would you see when they would bring the meat in and he'd prepare the meats and stuff like
yeah,
that?
they'd bring a big half cow or something, and then he'd trim it all off and sort it out as to what you wanted to do, steaks or chops or whatever. And I'm telling you, my mother and dad worked pretty hard. I know, as considering what us women do nowadays, my mother worked very hard. And fortunate enough, during the Depression, everybody needed money or food.
Mm-hmm.
So the relatives, one would come and offer to clean the yard or maybe help downstairs with the inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Or then some aunts would come over and help my mother with wash and her ironing and cleaning house. And that's how my mother would pay them
Yeah.
in regard to what they did. And then after the Depression, when people were starting to get back on their feet again, my mother and dad gave credit to everybody because it was a neighborhood store.
Mm-hmm.
They knew everybody. And when it was kind of over with, they kind of forgot the butcher on the corner. They were going to these big discount stores.
Oh.
So that's when my mother and dad lost the house, and then we had to move. But until then, they were generous with their food.
Did they run the store during the Depression?
Oh yeah, throughout the whole Depression they ran it, because it seems like we were settled in a neighborhood where they had policemen, sheriffs, firemen, in that kind of area. So
Okay.
even though they didn't get paid, they had got, what was that called, that they got something that, there was a word,
Script?
something like that, yeah. So, and of course, you know, a lot of people, when things are starting to get better, they kind of forget about the little guy that helped them, and that's what happened. And my mother and dad, when they lost the house and they had inventory and they had some bills to be paid, every month the salesman would come over and my mother would give them food. The amount of food that she owed them with cans, because they had a big inventory downstairs, she would pay them with the food. And she left the place with a clear head, no, she didn't owe money to anybody. And by that time my dad was dead, but she really made a go of life for herself.
She worked hard
So-
after he died too in the laundry
Oh,
at
yeah,
St. Francis Hospital.
yeah, my ma did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have to share a room in that house? For a bedroom? Where'd you sleep?
Well, all us kids slept in one bedroom.
Yeah?
Yeah, and my mother and dad had another bedroom.
And Leonard had his own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was on 12th Street. I don't know about the store.
Oh, the store? No, Leonard was, we had 2 beds in one bedroom. And then Leonard would jump in our bed and tickle us and everything. And she and I would yell and scream, you know, stuff. And then all of a sudden they'd knock on a wall from the store. Or else there was Papa come in and all he had to do was shake the belt. He had an extra one, you know, and he kind of shake it around when he's coming. We'd all sneak under the blankets, I'm telling you.
That was before my time.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was.
Probably didn't want the customers to think that the kids were being molested.
Yeah.
Oh, my characters are on the wine hill here.
Are they?
Yeah. That's that big tree down below the one that looks like it's dying. That's where I poured it, right where the little movement is. They're having fun licking the rocks.
And then, but of course, my mother, she did all the cooking too. And I think that's why Carol and I never learned to cook that much, because
Excuse me?
my mother, her time was so limited and she couldn't be bothered with telling us do this or that.
She just did it herself.
She did it herself to get it over with. And that's why I think Arlene and I never really got to learn how to cook.
What a good excuse that is,
I,
Audrey.
but it's so legitimate.
It sounds so good.
But it's
It is.
true.
That's true.
It's so true, really. Even Leonard, he never even got to be a cook. Once in a while, I would get something together from watching my mom, but it wasn't enough for me to get involved in it that much.
No, it wasn't.
Would you guys work in the store?
Not completely.
What we would do while we were eating and somebody would come in the store, the bell would ring, one of us kids would run out to see who it was, and if it was something they just needed, like cigarettes or a can of food or something, we could handle it and leave them eat. But if it was something they needed with a cut of meat or something, then either my mom or my dad went
Okay.
out there.
That's when there was no supermarkets and we had the long grabber.
Yeah.
And we had to get the cans off the shelf.
Oh,
Way up there.
okay. Yeah.
And of course, that's how my dad got blood poison in his leg. He was stocking up cans on the upper shelf, and one can fell. And my dad always wore long johns and long pants because he'd go in and out of the freezer. And that can, I don't know why it was, but it went right through his underwear and his pants, and it caused blood poisoning. And my dad was in bed for a long, long time, and my mother ran the store by herself, and she did her share of hard work.
How long would you say he was down because of that, or
You know,
not
quite
working?
a long time, but I couldn't tell
Yeah,
you how long.
okay.
But it was months,
Okay.
because he couldn't walk on that leg. And every doctor that my mother called said, well, I guess we'll have to take the leg off.
And they